Bright MLS is proud to unveil the Bright T3 Home Demand Index, the first and only of its kind index that is powered by comprehensive, real-time, multi-dimensional MLS data. This index, created in partnership with T360, a leading real estate research and management consulting firm, captures anticipatory buyer demand signals so agents can put their ear to the ground of the market and gain new insights for their clients. Today, Brian is joined by the chairman and CEO of T360, Stefan Swanepoel, where we get an in-depth look at the new Bright T3 Home Demand Index. Let's get started.
Hi, Stefan. I want to thank you for taking the time to be with me today on this episode of MLS Revealed, where we're going to talk about the Bright T3 Home Demand Index. Thanks again.
Hey, well, it's good morning or good afternoon somewhere in the world, but Brian, to you and to everybody at Bright, thank you for the invite. Love to be here. Awesome.
And you know what's exciting about this? I truly am excited to have you on here. Is the MLS Revealed is to show the potential of the MLS, the multiple listing service, and where we're going. And we have an example today of something that is just around the corner that's coming out. So it's something that actually we can say, this is part of what the MLS does and can do, and the potential is limitless. So let's start the conversation on where we are today, where the industry is today. And we're talking about the index. Where are we today in terms of indices? And why is this important?
And indices is just another smart word. It's the same as when we use the rankings at the Real Estate Almanac or the SP 200. It's a word that indicates that you've done some research, you've got a lot of data, you've crunched it, you've sorted it, you've put an algorithm into it, you've put it into a formula, into a table, into a graph, into a chart, whatever, right? You've done something with data and you've put it into, in this case, as you said, an index or indices that allow you to interpret the data better. We all know that indices or rankings, they're not perfect. We understand that you can have a slight disagreement with them, but it's because it takes in a huge amount of information and it tries to distill it into something which is understandable. We had to spend weeks and days and months just to understand one piece of it. It took us a whole year to try and get our hands around what it is. So an index is a tool that allows brokers and agents a snapshot into time or geography or a place or a category or an area and actually understand it better. It's awesome.
Yeah. So, and also today, I would say there's national indices out there. How does that help? Is it helping enough?
Everything that exists in the world, in our industry and indices as in particular, of course it helps. I do think everything is there. It was created by a smart person at a given time in place. And I think there's not one indice out there that I haven't used. I mean, so indices or anybody that writes you a book or a system and provides you information, that's a good thing. Of course we use it. But we also know that time progresses fast and people become desirable of more information, better information, quicker information, more real-time information. And as a result of that, everything needs to renew itself. MLSs need to renew themselves, associations, brokerage companies, franchises, and so do indices. Indices also have to. But with technology advancing so much, I think it's time that indices can do more. They can slice more, they can do it quicker, they can do it more extensively, they can do it wider. And I think that's what we're trying to do here. That was part of your dream and vision that you had, that you shared with me and said, Stefan, let's explore where this can go. And I think what we've come up with is even further than you and I envisaged when we started the journey. And that's usually what makes a development exciting, right? You have a dream, and then when you work on it, you realize, oh boy, I just touched the surface.
It's exciting. Just to stop back there for a second. So you and your team have been through the data. Do you think there's more at the end of this?
Let's not jump the gun here because we're giving them a lot here already, but I think so. The amount of information that is buried in an MLS is, I don't want to say uncountable, but it is immeasurable. There's a lot. And to get your hands around everything is, again, an enormous task. You and I and your team, your great tech team, and then we have some economists and some PhDs and mathematicians and all these kind of really, really, really smart people. I mean, they sat and they looked at the data and they asked you for more data. I mean, these guys went back and forth and back and forth and back and forth to the drawing board, and they've come up and said, let's take the first pieces of information that are very obvious, very clear, very distinct, very identifiable, things that if you speak to a realtor, they absolutely understand it. You don't have to explain an open house to a realtor, right? And they would say, well, why has that information never been available? Or visiting a property, or a consumer tracking something on a website. Why has that information never been scrubbed, cleaned, gathered, consolidated? That's what we've done this time around. So we've taken the information sets that are good, solid, comprehensive. You were so kind to allow us to go back a couple of years. So we didn't just work with today's information. We went and tested this on, 2-3-year-old data to where we could grab a whole year and we could go look in the past and the future. We could go back and forth, right? And we looked at the data and said, can we learn something from that? Is there something that you extrapolate from that actually means something to the real estate professional? Because that's your client, and that is by definition then our client. We are here to provide information in a way that the real estate broker and agent feels they're getting value, right? This information is not for the media. It's not for the government, right? It's not for somebody else. It's for the real estate professional that you and I serve.
So let's just talk about the index here for a second. So, this index is a buyer demand index. What does that mean?
Ooh, good question. Most indices in the past, if not all, but most of them at least, were based on information that was gathered from a post-transactional source. So from a county register, from a deeds office. So it was information of something that had already happened, and usually a couple of weeks, maybe even a month or two ago. Again, the data is great, but it does reflect a historic transaction of times gone past. So the thinking here is, with the markets being so hot, moving fast, lots of changes, lots of buyers, to know what happened to a piece of real estate 2 months ago is great. But wouldn't it be even nicer if I know what happened to it last week or maybe even this week? So if I could get more current information now, maybe we'll get to 100% real time. We're obviously not quite at real time, but if you could move history from 2 months old or 3 months old to maybe this week, this month kind of stuff, and you could give them the information of what's happening even before a property is sold. So there are people looking at properties today, whether they're knocking on the door of an agent or they're knocking on the door of a website, your website, their website, a franchise website, a portal website, it doesn't really matter, right? They're knocking on the door of a website. They're maybe going to a lockbox. They may be visiting it. They may be doing a virtual tour. If you could track that information, which the other indices don't even know that the transaction has happened yet because it hasn't happened yet. So here you're actually saying this isn't a selling index. This is a pre-selling index. This is a demand index. That gives you a better feeling that if you're selling or buying, what the market is doing today or last week. Therefore, you can price a house better. You can make a better or a more accurate offer. And you as a real estate professional don't have to depend on an outside third party giving you historic information. You're working with your MLS, your local MLS that you already have a great relationship with. And you're getting the most current information before anybody else does. I think this places the real estate professional. You remember how NAR always said that you should be at the center of the transaction? Boy, well, if that wasn't always true, if it was close to, this moves you a few centimeters or a few inches or a few feet or a few fingers closer to the center of the transaction.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you there that the professional has to be the trusted advisor, but they can only be that if they know something more than what other folks do. So we've taken a couple different looks at the index, and again, a national index is interesting, but even within the Bright footprint, there's variances between zip codes and cities and things like that. How do you see that as a different take on that? And why is that important?
Boy, did people tell you you're smart too? Boy, you're smart. That makes so much sense. I mean, I love a national index, but when you look at a GDP of a country or a population growth of the country, it is so high level. It is so high level. It's an interesting stat for a barbecue or the NFL football final when you're sitting there, but it doesn't have relevancy down to your home. So there are, if I remember correctly, around about 42,000 zip codes. So when you and I spoke and the teams got together, they said, why are you guys giving stats, or why do some stats, work on big areas when there are multiple completely unique different areas in a certain area? So we asked Brian, do MLSs have statistics per zip code? And you said, of course we do. I said, then why? If you have the stats per zip code, why don't we analyze it by zip code? And we did do that. And that is awesome. So although we'll give you a metropolitan statistic as well, so you can see the big picture of, pick a place in Philadelphia or Washington, you can see the big picture, but then we'll break it down into the zip codes, which is more succinct. It's more accurate. And then, of course, again, your team and our team came together and said, well, that's super duper. It's way better than any other index. But guess what? In a given zip code, you even have houses and townhouses and simplexes and duplexes and triplexes and ranch and luxury homes. And therefore, if there's a zip code that might overlap multiple types of houses, you still have a statistic that might not mean a lot. So then we broke it down another level. We said, is there different types of homes? Now, we can't break it down, of course, to every single home, but you guys helped very, very, very much in the cities which you cover from Bright. And you said, well, there are 5 or 6 or 7 predominantly different types of houses. And we took that and we pulled those apart. So what the home demand index is, which Bright and T3 is doing together, is basically taking traditional statistics, bringing it current, making it real-time relevant, breaking it down into zip codes, and then breaking it down into housing types. So the realtor is going to get information like they've never, ever, ever had before. They're going to be like Superman going to another planet.
That's great. Actually, you went further than the whole discussion about the different types of home housing that you're going to cover. Stefan, if you were a broker or if you were an agent, you can pick either one and you can do both. How would you use this? How would you take this piece of information and use this to your advantage easily?
T360 is built on information. We are built on the fact that we like to know what's going on, that we know how to solve problems, and that we are smarter than our competitors around us. That's exactly what the real estate professional must be. He can now have more information, more accurate information, more current information at his fingertips, which should make him, as compared to people that do not use the information or use older information or base their information on hearsay or newspapers or media or other indices, not be as professional as they are. So use the information to do what you normally do, but you just do it better. Your CMAs should be more accurate. Your information about the neighborhood should be more accurate. When you're talking to a buyer and seller, you should be more intelligent, more current. You'll be able to give them more stats. This information that we're crunching and putting together in the T3 Bright T3 Home Buyer Index, right? What a mouthful, but it's a big thing. But if we take that thing together, it is going to have charts and tables by housing type, by this month, by last month, last 3 months compared to last year, year over year. So there will be tons of extra charts, which the chief economist, T3 has now hired a chief economist that has something like 30 years of experience at NAR, at the federal government. He's got his PhDs in economy. He's going to write up his interpretation. Now, I know that every broker and professional has his own interpretation, and that's, of course, awesome. But if you don't want to do that, if you don't have time for that, you just want to look at it, we'll have an economist write you up a summary and a synopsis of what's happening. You can just grab that, cut and paste that, snip that, put it into a slide deck, just print it out, walk with you into a client and give it to them. So knowledge is power, and we want to empower the real estate agent so that they can compete in this new age of technology and information. We thank you for the honor of selecting us as a partner. We are delighted to be able to serve your realtors and brokers through the MLS, through Bright. I think that we've come up together with an awesome product. that not only you and I can be proud of, but the entire team that worked. I know you have a Frank on your side and more people on your side. So I don't know, it's probably, reaching 24 people maybe that have already worked on this and have put in what they would consider, a year of their life. But I think we have a product that the industry is going to be proud of, and that hopefully becomes a legacy piece that all MLSs can offer to their realtors. I'm very grateful for the opportunity, and thank you very much.
Truly exciting. Thank you.